Hey there, Rebels. Thanks for tuning in again to the Rebel Lane podcast. My name is Kevin Kukar. I am still your host, and we are still here with James King, restaurateur and CEO of Titan Hospitality, talking about innovating in the face of COVID-19. James, thanks again for doing this. We appreciate it. Tell me how you innovate in food and beverage, especially when it seems like the rules of play are changing every, couple days. You get a new message about what we can or cannot do in food, beverage, hospitality, travel all the time. How do you innovate?
So one of the best things that we have done was, as a company, we started the innovation process from the outset. We have always believed strongly that you have to innovate as you grow. And so a lot of restaurateurs will create a concept, they'll have great success, they'll put their head down and they'll run it and make money for 4 or 5 years, and then they'll bring their head up and look around and realize we're not that cool anymore. What happened? So we're determined as a company never to let that happen. We don't want to get in a situation in 8 or 10 or 12 years where we have to make a multi-million-dollar reinvestment in our brand. Instead, what we hope to do is continually innovate. So we bring our leadership together, which is composed of all of our executive chefs, our general managers, our corporate staff, our director of operations, our culinary director, our accounting team, our marketing team. We meet quarterly and we innovate. And it could be a really cool salt and pepper shaker that nobody's ever seen before, a different color water glass, a new plate. It could be a menu item. It could be new lighting. But we've always believed that if you continually innovate every single month, then you stay cool, you stay relevant, and you don't have to do this massive every 12-year thing. So coming into the pandemic, we were already in that mindset of we're constantly changing and innovating, and that's what makes us successful. This just really highlighted the fact of, well, now you've got to do it faster, quicker, and better than everyone else. But I believe that my team was trained and ready to do it because we always thought that way. So we immediately brought everyone together and we said, what does the new normal look like? And we didn't know totally what it looked like, but we had some idea of what seating capacities were going to look like, outdoor dining, things like that. And we said, how do we make this experience feel first and foremost safe for our guests? How do we make them comfortable? How do we make them want to come back, right? Because if they try us once, that's great, but we got to get them coming back. And what do we need to do from a food and service perspective, but probably more importantly, a technology perspective. And so we partnered with our marketing company and we said, hey, we've got to go touchless, we've got to go QR code, we've got to put stuff in front of people where they don't have to touch it, they can look at it, they can use their own personal devices to give them that extra comfort level. And we were nimble, we moved quickly. Once again, we were already kind of having these discussions in our innovation discussions about getting iPads for the tables where you can scroll wine lists and things like that. So we kind of stepped up those efforts, we put it into high gear, and we rolled it out in a relatively quick amount of time. And the feedback we got was overwhelmingly positive. And so by seeing that, we said, okay, we made some really good steps. Now what's next? What's coming down the pike and how do we innovate and do that? And so now we're looking at all kinds of things. Really, I think the wave of the new normal is going to be, how does technology do a couple things? How does it make the experience better for the guest? How does it make it easier for the employee, right? How do we cut time for the employee? So things like pay at the table, where the consumer never has to give their credit card to somebody else. They're holding on to it the entire time. They put it in, they're done. And then a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that the customer really never sees. We've implemented technology that ensures that all of the little details are being taken care of every day, whether it's bathroom checks every 15 minutes, hand sanitizer checks, line checks. So we've implemented probably $200,000 worth of technology over the last 6 months to ensure that it's cutting edge, it's quick, it's fast. It helps. To me, it's got to help both. It's got to help the employee and it's got to help the consumer. It's not enough to just do one. If the consumer's happy, but it's making it twice as difficult on the employee, you're really not gaining anything. The employee has to buy into the technology. They want to use it. They've got to see a path for it to help them make money. And I think we've been able to do that, and we're continually looking for what's next. And so with a strong partnership with our marketing team, it's a constant conversation. It's probably weekly, if not twice a month, of where are we? Where do we need to go? What should we be doing? What's around the corner? And if we try to just stay ahead of that, I think we can be there, as opposed to always catching up. And I've been in that position in my life. When I bought my first restaurant, I was so opposed to new systems, new technologies, because I was so comfortable in what I did. I understood it. I was quick at it. I knew it. Simple things from swiping an old credit card in an old machine and then printing it, as opposed to integrating that with your point of touch systems. And I realized that if you're doing the catch-up game, 75% of your time and your energy is going into playing catch-up, as opposed to focusing on your consumer, which is really where your time and energy needs to go. And so we're determined as a company to never be playing catch-up, but hopefully be trendsetters and be ahead of the curve, where people are looking at us and saying, what are they doing? How did they do this so quickly, flawlessly? And so we do an okay job of it, and we work at it every day, and you never know what curveball is going to come at us next, where we need to evaluate and address and figure out how to get around it, but we try to stay ahead.
Yeah, I think it's cool that I've never heard someone refer to it in this way, but what I was left with is the sense that food isn't the only thing that you check the expiration dates on. You guys seem to be checking your expiration dates on ideas every week to say, where are we at and what can we do differently? The bar is also, just having toured the restaurant and familiar with the landscape, and I'm going to have production grab a clip of it so that the people who are listening or who are watching can see it, but even in your dining room, it seems like you guys have built these cabanas, these cubes for people to come to have dinner at, which seems like that you've raised the bar for what you have to do. Yeah. There's a bar or a level where restaurants are expected to be, and you guys seem to have intentionally gone, cool, that's a great place to start. Now, what can we do on top of that? Sure. So, two things I guess I'm curious about is, one, where did that come, where is that coming from? And two, does that also mean that you're making plans for what you're about to open to design for COVID, not necessarily for where it might be in a year? And how do you do both?
It's a great question. So what we very early on in the process decided was no amount of marketing dollars and advertising and magazine ads are going to drive a consumer into this business. With COVID, we believe it's a very personal decision. People are going to make a decision whether they are comfortable going out to dine based on 100 factors that we can't control: pre-existing conditions, their age, their family, who they live with. And so we shifted our thought process and said, instead of trying to figure out how to go find a customer, let's figure out how, when a customer comes in, they feel really comfortable and they want to come back and they want to tell 3 other people. And so one of the things that we felt would accomplish that goal was to give everybody the feeling that they're in their own private dining room almost. Their private space where they're not looking across the table at guests that they've never met before. So it was a significant financial investment, and we went out and bought very nice dividers, and we basically, instead of being, I think the current law says tables need to be 6 feet apart with 6 people at each table, we went to 10 feet. And we surrounded every table with dividers with one entrance in and out. And so when a group of 2 or 4 or 6 come in, they truly are sitting in their own private dining environment. And the only person they're making contact with is the server. And of course, our servers are following the proper hygiene. They have masks on, gloves on. And so it's a totally different dining experience than I think a lot of people are getting at normal restaurants, where tables, they're spread out a little bit, but you're in the middle of a dining room, right? And so, going back to the technology piece and to the dividers, and one of the things we did when the government shut us down was, where most restaurants cut all expenses, we doubled down. We paid all of our management 100% of their salaries. But we asked them to come in and let's remodel every restaurant. Let's re-sand and stain and finish the hardwood floors. When else are we going to get 5 days where we can close, where nobody can walk on them? Let's rip all the kitchen equipment apart and detail it, all the stainless steel. We replaced lighting fixtures. We painted. We said, hey, let's make a bad situation good, right? We have an opportunity with no one in the building. Let's spruce it up. And so that took money. We also reinvested in the technology, and then we reinvested in these dividers. And so very, very difficult decisions to make, right? When the income stops, your instant reaction is stop spending. But I just feel like the ones who are reinvesting are the ones who are going to come out on top of this at the end. And so not everyone's in a position to do that. We're very fortunate that we have great relationships with banks. We negotiated very good relationships with our landlords. It was contentious at times, but eventually we got to a point where we were comfortable. And we had a little bit of cash reserves in the bank for a rainy day, and we decided to use that to reinvest. And the overwhelming feedback that we have gotten from guests has been, this is incredible, we feel very safe, it's clean, and we want to come back. So that was hopefully answered the first question. The second question is, as we open the new restaurants, we're really creating 2 floor plans. We're creating a COVID and a post-COVID. We're designing the restaurant as if COVID did not exist. And now we're coming in and putting the systems in place to separate it for COVID that will easily be able to be pulled away as we come out of this. Taking a little bit of extra work and thought process and creating 2 floor plans and finding places to store furniture and things like that. But with that being an unknown, we didn't want to get ourselves in a position where, hey, if we all get fortunate and let's just say a vaccine happens and the governor says go back to normal, but now we only have half the tables and chairs that we need, it could take 6 weeks for us to order them all. So we said, let's build this as if COVID didn't exist, and then let's dial it back. And then we can always add it back. We have the stuff that we need, we have the systems, we have the floor plans, and we can be nimble. And I think that's the most successful restaurateurs right now and the most successful concepts are nimble. They're able to adapt on a day's notice. We were given 24 hours notice that we could reopen. We had no food, we had no menus, we had no employees. The lights were turned off, the walk-ins were turned off, and within 24 hours we were up and running, and we had 160 guests that next night. And so you got to be able to just move on a dime's notice and figure it out and say, hey, it's a tough situation, but we got to get through it. And I think that's really, not to go off on a tangent, but one of the hardest things I think right now for restaurateurs is the frustration that, hey, we understand there's a global pandemic. We get it. This is uncharted territory for everyone. But we believe, I think, that it's been made even harder on us by incompetence in a government that has not been able to at least communicate with us and say, hey, on next Friday, we're going to let you go live. I mean, I had a conversation with our food distributor who said, we went from selling 20 restaurants who were doing takeout and carryout only hamburger meat. And with the governor's order, we just got 2,352 phone calls from restaurants who need hamburger meat. We don't have it, right? I mean, so, they've done us no favors in the way that they've, I think 2 things. One, work together to agree, because we have our mayor is on a different page from our county executive, who's on a different page from our governor, who's on a different page from our president. So there's no collaboration, and then without collaboration, how do you have communication? So, we watch 5 different news feeds a day. We don't know who's going to make the next decision. Is it the governor? And then if the governor makes a decision, is our county executive going to disagree with that and go in a different direction? And is the mayor of the city going to do something different? And with restaurants in multiple jurisdictions, I feel like half the time all I'm doing is just trying to get sound bites from different elected officials trying to figure out what direction we may go. And so, look, hopefully everyone learns from this, and like I said, it's uncharted territory, but moving forward, we would hope that the communication with the industry, and it's not just our industry, I'm sure there's a number of industries out there, health clubs and gyms and things like that are very frustrated because we're dealing with what we're dealing with, and then on top of that, we feel like it's being made a little bit more difficult because there's a lack of communication and giving us an opportunity to plan, because timing and planning is everything in this industry. So, having employees that, you just pick up the phone and say, can you come back to work tomorrow? It's tough. And so we've been very fortunate that, per our earlier conversation about employee retention, we have some very loyal, hardworking people who were kind of waiting for the green light to go. And so we got up and running. And now I would say, we started with 840 employees prior to COVID. Unfortunately, we laid off about 675 of them. And we've been able to bring back about 50% of that right now. And our hope is that we get back to full capacity in the next 6 months. But it's hard. It's certainly hard.
On that note, in that vein, what does the industry look like a year from now, 2 years from now? Obviously, I'm asking you to pull a crystal ball out and take a peek, but like, what do you think?
So I think one of the things that's going to forever change this industry is delivery services. It's a growing percentage, and every week it grows and grows and grows. I think, two things will happen. People have changed their habits. There's statistics out there that said 37% of people who have never cooked before now feel like they're competent cooks. So people learn to cook. They learn to go to the grocery store and eat at home. I think 40% of people who never ordered from a delivery service have now ordered 2 to 3 times a week. So that's been a huge change for us. We've jumped right in. We offer those services, but it comes at a huge cost. There's fees associated with that. The delivery services are charging fees, but then you've got your to-go containers, your napkins, your salt, your pepper. So the food's going out of the door at a much higher cost to us than it would if we were to serve it here. So to me, that's a game changer. A year from now, I think every restaurant, regardless of whether you're fine dining or fast food, you're going to offer that service because you need to fight for your share of that market space. I think the second thing is I feel like the personal spacing, social distancing is probably never really going to go away. People are going to feel more comfortable spread out. And so I think floor plans are going to change in restaurants. And that's going to create some unique opportunities for certain spaces, and it's going to create challenges for other spaces depending on your facility and how it's laid out. But I think this was kind of a wake-up call to the American people that overnight a global pandemic can break out. And, the further away you are from strangers and people you don't know, you're going to feel more comfortable. So I think it's going to change how people set up their restaurants. I think the sanitation and hygiene, quite frankly, has always been at a high level in restaurants, and most people didn't know that. But I think that's something that, to the general public, they will feel that that's been elevated. The reality situation is we've always taken that very seriously. We have health department inspections constantly. We use chemicals, high temp dish machines. So for us, that wasn't that big of a transition. We were used to wearing, all my employees have worn gloves for 10 years. Face masks, obviously, were a new addition, but that's a relatively easy fix. But I think that's something that we've always done, but I think to the consumer, they're going to be looking for those standards moving forward. And I think, and I've always said that anybody can go get a meal these days. You can get food anywhere. You can get it at a grocery store. You can get it at fast food. You can get it wherever you want. People now, if they're venturing out, they want an experience. It's got to be more than just the food you put on the plate. You have to have good food. That's a piece of it. But decor and environment and service and the server's uniform and the candle and the unique offerings and the larger wine list, all of those things I think are now more important than ever before. And I think before people were comfortable going out, and in their minds they were going out for a meal, and if the meal was good, they were happy. It's just not enough anymore. People now, when they go out and they spend their hard-earned money, they want to go out for an experience. They want to make a night of it. They're going to go out, they're going to eat dinner, maybe they stick around and have a drink at the bar afterwards or listen to some live music. And I think restaurants that can deliver that are going to do very, very well. And I think restaurants that are so set in their way of just focusing on their quality of food, I think they're going to struggle. I think that's just not good enough anymore. There's a lot of good food out there. But what else is there? Well, you've got to give that extra, hey, this is why I come out. So I think that's going to change. I think people are going to have to look at a lot more aspects of their business other than focusing on the quality of their food and beverages.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate taking the time.
Anytime. My pleasure.
A special thanks to James King for joining us for the Rebel Aim podcast. And thank you, folks, for tuning right along. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Instagram stuff, YouTube, places that my producer is supposed to write down on a Post-it note or something and stick next to the camera so that I remember them. Doesn't matter. Find us on social media, and thanks for tuning in.